Hey guys, hello everyone. Welcome to our first episode of our podcast, Sonova. This is a father son podcast, anything to do with parenthood, anything to do with life in general. Um, we really want to do this podcast because we feel like we have something to say, and we feel like someone somewhere in the world will hear what we have to say and will either enjoy it or will find it interesting. I am your host, Gabe Chavarria Soj. This is my father, Albert Chavarria Jimenez.
I am the father. Gabe, I am your father.
Albert, I am your son. um, and yeah, mostly this is a personal quest as well for me, so I can be more eloquent and talk better in front of a camera and in front of people.
And I believe today we're going to be talking about relationships, right?
Yeah. Today we have a couple of things to talk about. We have relationships, talking about best friends, specifically in your case, your best friends, how you've kept your relationships with your best friends and how you've been so close with them for 40 plus years.
Yeah.
Later on, we'll talk about how you chose to have a child with my mother, obviously, seeing as I am here. How that changed from other relationships, how you knew that it was a moment, that was a time. And later on, we'll probably talk about my relationships, my past, my friends, my my relationships with girls, how how all that has happened and managed, and how I've managed that.
Sounds good to me. Sounds like
So
it's
yeah,
going to be a nice, promising, probably long podcast.
yeah, it's probably gonna be a bit of a long one, probably over an hour, but we'll see.
Good.
We'll see
Well,
what
we'll
happens.
see where it takes us.
Exactly.
All right, so let's get started.
I want to start off with your best friends, with Fred and Nick, because
Right.
you guys have quite a special relationship in the sense where you at least you and Fred have been best friends for almost 40 years now.
Well, let me clarify that they're not just my best friends; they're my only friends.
Yeah. Well,
They
that's
just
not really
they also
true.
happen to be my best friends. Yeah. So basically you want to talk about not so much relationships as about friendships, or because relationships can be good, relationships can be bad.
Well, we'll start off with friendships, and
Okay.
we'll I have some other things I want to talk about.
Perfect.
But yeah, I want to start off with friendships and how you held a friendship for, or how
For so long.
you've held a friendship for yeah, like 40 years, like I said. Because I feel like that's not a normal thing to do, especially like maybe when you're 70, then yeah, for 40 years it might be normal, but when you're 50 to have a friendship since you were 10 years
10
old,
years old, yeah.
you know what I mean? That's a very special and not a
Well, I reckon
usual
that's
thing.
yeah. I reckon it's my relationship with Fred and Nick as it goes much further back with Alfredo than with Nick,
Yeah,
and I think that's mostly luck, really. Alfredo was the second person I met when I came down here to the coast of Spain in school.
yeah,
Our principal, school principal at the time, just basically randomly picked children to help me and my brother out during that first day of school and to guide us around. And Alfredo was the person that she picked for my brother. Alfredo's a little bit older than me, so he was in a higher grade, in a
yeah,
higher class, and they hit it off, and I hit it off with Alfredo, and ever since then he's been an inseparable companion in mostly my life, but also in my brother's life. And I think that was just pure 100% luck. Yeah, you hear the cicadas. We're outside in our terrace, so you might hear some extra noise that
yeah.
we
Some
don't
cars and
unwanted
some
noise, cars, cicadas, things like that. It's the sounds of summer here in Spain.
yeah. Yeah, we're in Spain, just so you guys know.
Anyway, Nick, I met through basketball. We Basketball was a huge thing at school at that time.
Mm-hmm.
We all played basketball. Nick played basketball, and I can't as opposed to Alfredo, who I remember exactly when I met him. I can't really remember Nick. Nick was just one of the older guys. He's always around, a very nice guy. And I can't remember any particular moment when Nick and I started being friends. It just happened through basketball, through going out in the evenings, the weekends, having parties, etc. Eventually, he just became a good friend, and we again it was a matter of in this not so much it wasn't so much a matter of luck, it was a matter of compatibility. He happened to be very compatible with us. He seemed to, for some reason, like hanging out with us younger guys rather than the older guys in his class, or he seemed to have more in common, and we've kept it up ever since. And we've been compatible ever since. Obviously, we haven't seen each other every single day for the last 40 years,
Yeah,
but we
obviously.
have been pretty much together. Our lives have been weaving in and out for the last 40 years, and we've always kept in touch, and we've always looked at each other for companionship. We've always looked at each other for advice, and I think all three of us look up to each other in ways that make us want to hang out together all the time.
Right.
I think that's basically it.
Makes sense. Because obviously you guys, you've lived on or almost the opposite sides of the world at some points, where you were in the UK, I believe, and at least Fred was in New York,
Yeah, as I
right?
say,
Or were you here?
exactly, our lives have been apart, always coincided,
Yeah.
coming together and then being apart again. I was here in Spain because I was the youngest of all of us. I graduated later from school, which means obviously Nick was the first one to graduate. He went to Canada and studied there for 5 years. Alfredo graduated the year after that. He went to the UK, and I stayed here. I finished my studies here. I finished my schooling, but then when I graduated, I stayed in Spain for another couple of years. So all that time we were separate. Then I went to England. I met up with Alfredo, and there we stayed together for the next 4 or 5 years. And then again, we separated. In the meantime, Nick was in Canada. When Nick finished in Canada, he went to the UK to do his master's. And during all that time, he was with Alfredo.
Yeah.
And then again, we all separated. It's a bit of an explosion.
Yeah.
And for the next 10, 15 years, our lives just were in different countries. And eventually we all ended up here in Spain again. And now all three of us are here in Spain. We have been for the last 20 years or so. And we see each other every weekend, just like we always did. And we still talk about the same things. It's pretty sad sometimes.
What I want to know is the hard part where you guys, like you said, you guys exploded. How did you guys stay close, I guess? Because obviously it was the 90s,
Yeah.
the 90s then, no? The early 2000s?
Early 90s
Yeah.
up to the early 2000s, yeah.
Sorry.
Or the late 80s, really.
Yeah. Well, exactly. So obviously back then, you guys had to write letters to each other if you didn't want to spend exuberant amount of money
Yeah.
on long distance phone calls. You don't have WhatsApp like we do now, where we can just send photos, we can send messages, we can call for free. So how did you keep that closeness and keep that bond for so long over such a long distance with such little contact? You know what I mean?
Well, I think it's funny you should say that, because I've thought about that, and we've thought about that throughout the years and years. And I think really that comes down to compatibility.
Okay.
It comes down, but ultimately I think it comes down to family.
Okay.
We had our parents were relatively similar, even though Alfredo's were a little bit further removed. His upbringing, his mother had the same South American roots as my father had, Central American roots. Nikki's parents were very close as well, and they had their moral values as to the upbringing of their children were relatively similar to my parents.
Right.
Moreover, Alfredo started living with us. There came a point where Alfredo's parents couldn't be in the country here with us, so my parents took Alfredo in, and for quite a long time he was living with us and receiving my parents' moral values as well.
Yeah.
And I think that's carried on till now, and I think that's what kept us together, even though our lives were in a very crucial time at the end of our teens through our early 20s. That's when a person really develops as a person, as a human being. During all that time, our moral values never really changed, which means that every time we got back together, we saw that we were still compatible in that sense. And I think that's crucial. In fact, I think that's crucial with any relationship you have, any positive relationship you have with any person. That compatibility, that moral compass you might have, comes from your own upbringing. And if you manage to have that, then it's part of the battle's won already. And of course, everything that comes with a good relationship, which is respect and humor.
Yeah. Because the reason I wanted to talk about this and I want to know more about this is because, as you know, me and my two best friends, Krish and Raul,
Yeah.
now we're in our second year, but we just finished our first year of university. So I moved to Ireland, Krish moved to the UK, and Raul stayed here. So we're kind of more or less in a similar situation as you, Nick and Fred. Obviously, not as big of an explosion where one has gone to Canada and New York and whatever.
Well, the world's smaller now as well with communication.
Yeah, well, that's what I was gonna say. So I want to know how you guys kept that relationship. Obviously, it's a lot easier for me because if I want, I can just call Raul or call Krish or send a message. It's quite a scary thing to move away from all your friends
It is, yeah.
when you're my age, because you'll be like, well, I don't know what will happen with my friends from school, the friends that I grew up with. Will they still be my friends when I get back? It's a bit quite anxiety inducing, you know what I mean?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what's funny. Because there was no WhatsApp, there was no social media, there was no immediate communication, we could only rely literally on letters. I can't remember, maybe once or twice, I might have spoken to Alfredo, who was in the UK from Spain, throughout all that time, long distance call. Never to Nick. That was way too far away and too expensive. Of course. So the funny thing is that you took those moments in time. So you write a letter and you say, this is what's happening right now, and you send it off. And from then till the moment you receive a letter back, that's a frozen moment in time. So that is your life at that point. Anything else that happens and all the little details get lost. So that person doesn't really know. So that actually makes it easier in a way, because you don't really know what other people they're meeting, how hard they might be having a life, how hard their life might be, or any little details, whether they're eating only pasta or whether they're having a great time, right? You just know what happened the last time you received a letter from them. And that's all you know. So then next time you receive another letter from them, or when you write back to them, you're referring to that one moment in time that might have been maybe a month ago. And that continued for years and years and years until the advent of email. So, and I think that's very weird looking at back now, but it actually makes it quite easier because you don't get lost in a world of details. And sometimes one of the challenges now could be that you're very connected, which is great, but at the same time, all those little tiny details could make your life more complicated and could eventually make your relationships more complicated as well.
True.
I don't know.
I never thought about that.
Well, you never thought about it. You never had to. You're a digital native, so you've never had to live through that. So your world is a world of details, and sometimes I feel quite jealous in a way, in the sense when I see you speaking to your friends, the closeness that you have is a closeness that we had to retain month after month. And when I see you talking to them, it's like you've never been apart at all, which really you haven't, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, I mean, definitely the messaging, the calling, also the video games, because I play a lot of video games with them, obviously makes it a lot easier because we talk basically every day. Maybe we don't call every day, but we send a message here and there during the day or whatever. And we send reels and we send TikToks, so we know the other person's there. It's the same amount of detail as if we were still going to school and he was still sitting next to me in business. You know what I mean? It's
right. So I have a question for you. You have you're asking me about my relationship with Alfredo and Nick, which is a 40-year-old relationship. Obviously, you're not even close to that, so there's no way your relationship with them could be that old. But you have known each other since you were 3. I mean, both Raul and Krish went to school with you.
16 years now.
Right. You were the first people you met basically when you went to your class, because you've been together for that long. However, in my recollection, you haven't always been as close as you are now.
No.
So my question to you is exactly the same question as your question to me. What made you be so close, and what has kept on that friendship for the last few years since you became so close?
Well, me and Raul, especially, we've always been in the same friend group. I used to be in a very close friend group. I wasn't best friends with Raul, but I was very, very good friends with Raul. But then that friend group kind of fell apart a bit, and me and Raul stayed together.
Okay.
So that definitely, because we stayed together, we got a lot closer, and it kind of cemented our best friendship. I don't know if you can really say that, but we became really good friends, and we became best friends, and we started talking every day. And definitely, I guess the way that his parents brought him up, like you said, is kind of similar to the way that you guys brought me up, in the sense of where you guys tell me everything, and they are more like friends to Raul. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I see you guys as, obviously, apart from my parents and someone to look up to, I can see you as my best friends. You know what I mean? Where I can tell you everything. Well, Raul sees his parents the same way, and we have common interests. We like the same video games. We like the same football team. We like the same basketball teams. So it's just a bunch of common interests and things in common that we have that made us get closer and closer. And the same thing with Krish. I mean, Krish he was in our friend group, but he wasn't as in the core, like he wasn't really in the core group. So once it all fell apart, the same as the thing that with Raul, where we kind of went with him as well.
Just go back a little bit. You just said when it all fell apart.
Yeah.
I think you have to explain that bit.
Well, you want me to explain it?
Yeah. Well, we're talking about relationships, right? And
Yeah,
you mentioned it, so you have to explain to our
Yeah,
viewers what all falling apart means.
So me and I was in a group of friends, like I already mentioned. We were very, very close, especially me and a couple of them. And the same old stories as always. I got a girlfriend, which they didn't like for whatever reason. They didn't like her, and that basically caused the rift in the group. And yeah, it just kept on getting worse and worse, and that's what happens. You know what I mean?
So what you're saying is that they didn't have the same moral values that you did.
Exactly. Like,
See what I mean? So that's what I was talking about. Relationships. If you want to keep a good relationship, I think it all starts there. Having a moral ground, a moral framework that you can all live by.
yeah,
And that only happens through your upbringing. Your friends at the time, obviously, it turns out, their moral framework is nothing like yours,
yeah, definitely.
and you became incompatible at the moment. Sad but true. It happens.
Yeah, it's true. It happens. I mean, I still see them every once in a while, and it's obviously it's not the same as when we were in the peak of our friendship. But I'm still cordial with them. I still say hi to them. I saw them in the Feria de Malaga. I saw a couple of them, not all of them, but yeah, I'm still friends with a couple of them. I still like a couple of them because they had less to do with it. But obviously, there's a few, which you know who they are.
I do. We'll only mention their names if we invite them to the podcast.
Yeah.
To talk about that time.
Yeah, that would be
Confront them. You know who you are.
that would be an episode, wouldn't it?
It would be. Yeah, it would be an interesting.
It would actually be quite a cool episode, I think.
Well, all these things are learning paths that you fall into in your life, and it's not the first time. It won't be the last.
Sorry, it's because one of the cats is like hitting one of the plants, and you can just see in the corner of your frame.
All right.
You see the plant like going like that.
We live in a house full of
Animals.
plants, animals, and it's never boring.
Yeah.
Right. So anyway, I think that sums up my relationship with Alfredo and Nikki. I wish they were here so that they could expand it.
Yeah.
We can invite them one day. But that's basically in a nutshell. And I tell you, it's been invaluable throughout the years. If you happen to be lucky enough to have that kind of friendship, that kind of relationship with people, it's hold on to it no matter what. The thing is, you won't really have to hold on to it no matter what, because it happens naturally. But it will get you out of so much trouble. It will make you, if you're feeling depressed, you always have somebody to talk to that knows that they will understand you, and more importantly, they will never expect anything back from the support they're giving you. And that is so crucial in any kind of relationship, starting with friendship and ending specifically with partners. And I think that's absolutely crucial.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I hope, that's why I asked, because I hope to stay with Raul and Krish, because I feel like right now they are very much like that with me, like and obviously I am with them, and I feel like I can tell them anything without being judged. Obviously, we'll make jokes about it later down the line, but I mean, that's
Yeah.
you guys do the same thing. You know what I mean?
Well,
It's
you have a good friendship. As your father,
yeah.
I approve.
I'm glad you approve.
They're good. They're good. They're good people. Good, Raul and Krish. They're good
Yeah.
guys.
You know what? Something I noticed, well, which me and Raul talked about maybe like a couple months ago, is that me, Raul and Krish, we actually see each other more now. Now that we've moved away than when we were
Than what
all
we
in
were
the
here.
same place, because we were all in the same school, but then Raul and Krish, the three of us, we went to three different schools. So it was kind of like, I guess now, because every time we come back from our places, we're all like, okay,
Well, it makes
this
it
is the
special,
time.
doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly. This is the time to see each other and be with each other. And yeah, I mean, I've seen it, Raul, like in the past maybe like 4 years. This is definitely the most we've seen each other, or at least talked 100%.
And do you find you have more in common now than you used to?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Even though we've known each other for a long time, our friendship is relatively young in the grand scheme of things. You know what I mean? We still learn. There's not much to learn, but we still learn things about each other. We still.
Oh, there's a lot to learn. Believe me.
No, I
You
know,
just
but
don't know it yet.
yeah, I guess. But I mean, in the core values, there's not much
Yeah.
to learn. You know what I mean? There's obviously the
True.
little stories here and there. There's plenty, and
Yeah.
obviously just because even I forget about stuff that happens to me. You know what I mean? But yeah.
Well, I think if you're, as we say, if those core values that you're talking about, if that moral framework doesn't change, then you have nothing to worry about. You, Christian Raul, would be tooth and nail throughout the rest of your lives. But it's an interesting journey seeing it from my end, because I see you as I was at your age, and my job as a father is to make sure that that moral framework and that those core values stay, that I've managed to ground them enough in your psyche and in your body to make sure that no matter what changes you go through, they will always stay constant. If Raul's parents and Krish's parents, and I have no doubt to believe they haven't, have done exactly the same thing, then you have nothing to worry about. The only issue is whether your moral compass changes throughout those times, and that's the moment when you will
Things
stop
get
liking
rocky.
your parents, well, you will change friends, and that's the moment me as a parent always worry about. As a parent, we always worry about that.
Yeah.
What if I haven't done enough? What if your core values aren't grounded enough and they change? And this is part of my interest of doing this podcast with you, because if that changes and if things go south really, really fast, and this incredible relationship that you and I have breaks down, at least I'll be able to refer to these videos
Yeah, I mean,
and wonder what went wrong, where I went wrong, and what
I
happened.
mean, I doubt that'll ever happen, because I mean, I feel like a lot of things have happened to
Yeah,
kind of
well, you
show
never
that it has. Obviously, you never know, and things change, but yeah, I feel like I've gone through quite a bit.
You always
Obviously,
do.
like everyone.
You always do. At any age, at this
Um,
whatever stage of your life you're
yeah.
in, you always say, "Man, I've gone through so much." And then 10 years later, you think like, "I really thought I was experiencing
Well, of
that."
course. Yeah.
Little did I know.
mean, obviously, you go, because you go through stages. You know what I mean?
Yeah. You also
can't-
have this, and apparently this is a thing with the Gen Z. I don't know, and people say is that you live in a sort of like a bubble that us parents have created for you. You have we've guarded you from the worst things in life, because we went through a lot of those things.
Right, okay.
So we've never wanted you to go through the kind of things that we went through. And at the same time, what we went through wasn't really that bad compared to a lot of other people, right?
Yeah.
So I guess your life, as far as you and your peers is concerned, is quite a bit better than what life we had. And that can be good or bad. The bad side of it is what people are saying now about Gen Z, that you guys are living a dream world of La La Land, where you think everything has to be perfect and always will be. It's not your fault. We told you that's the life we wanted to create for you, and you've believed it.
Yeah.
But anyway, I think that's another story.
Yeah,
that's another
that's
podcast.
another podcast. But just quickly, just want to say, I mean, obviously, my life is easier than your life, but my children's lives are hopefully going to be easier than my life. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I guess that's what we strive for as a society, is it not?
Well, yeah, you always want to improve, don't you?
Exactly. I
Well,
mean,
yeah.
if you compare from now to 100 years ago, I mean, there it was what 1925. They were they weren't doing too good back then. You know what I mean?
No, they just finished a world war, hadn't they? So they were
Exactly.
just
So I
rebuilding.
mean,
Yeah. So,
they
so here's another question I have for you is related to that is what I've gone blank. It was a very good question though, believe me. Oh yeah, about this bubble I'm talking about. Uh, most of your peers, are you? Can you think of anybody, any of your friends, any of the people that you've known throughout your life
yeah
that have totally steered away from the moral compass that they once had? Obviously, the friends that you mentioned before, they steered away from it. But not too far away. It was just slightly different. They just had a different outlook on things that didn't jive with yours.
I I don't. Here's the thing: is that when all that happened, I don't think that they steered away from their moral compass. I think that's just the time where your moral compass shows and you actually know what a
Right?
moral
Okay.
compass is.
Good one.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
Around that age, 15, 16, 17 is when you kind of realize what kind of person you are, what kind of person other people are. We
Yeah,
just have different ways of seeing life, and
you
it
basically
is what it
grew
is.
into what you were
Exactly.
supposed to grow into. Yeah,
And
makes
that's
sense. That makes sense. And since then, since that moment, because it does make sense, you know,
yeah,
when you're 16, that's when your mind starts developing into the future adult mind that you're gonna have.
yeah.
And so now, from the moment you're 16 till now that you're 19, is there anybody that you can think of that you might be thinking, "Ooh, they're starting to lose it. You know, don't go that way because it's not good for you, or it's not good for you as I see it."
In what way? The way that they're leading their life,
Yeah,
or
yeah,
yeah, I can think of one person.
yeah.
I don't know.
And what would you say to them?
I don't know,
No?
because
But you
kind
know
of
them well enough to see that they're deviating from the path they were on before, yeah.
yeah,
And you know them well enough to see to get the inkling that that path isn't maybe the right path that they should be taking. Is that what you're saying?
yeah. I know them well, but I don't really know them that well in the sense of they're like we don't see each other very often.
Right.
For different circumstances, we're in a different school,
Right.
and stuff. So yeah, I don't know. Because if I told you who it was, it would be well. I think he's doing better now.
Yeah.
I don't really know, but you know that there was a brief period where it was a bit like, oof, I don't know.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think we all agree. Yeah.
And I don't know, because obviously it's not like we were very good friends when we were younger, but you know we grew apart for different circumstances of not seeing him all the time, being in a different school. I don't know what.
There could be an element there of him trying to sometimes to be able to come back to your proper path, you have to make sure that that is the right path for you. And sometimes because of your external influences, you deviate from the path only to find that the other paths you might be able to take aren't quite so good. So then you stray back, you come back into the path.
Which is
And that happens because obviously we parents try to keep you in a bubble, but we don't live in bubbles.
yeah, of course.
The world is very big, especially now with the digital world, social media, etc. It's very easy to make millions of friends. Not all those friends are going to have your best interests at heart. Not all those friends are most of those friends aren't going to have exactly the same moral compass that you have and your family has. So it's very natural that throughout your life you find people and places and circumstances that will take you somewhere else. That's perfectly fine. You have to be able to find your way back. That's the important thing, that you find your way back if the way back is the way to go.
Yeah.
I'll give you an example. I grew up in a super extreme Catholic family, and until I was your age, a little bit younger, till I was 16, and my brain started developing, Catholicism was the way to go. I knew nothing else, and it made no sense to be anything else. And in fact, my parents were so extreme, and my family was so extreme, that just like any extremist, anything else that wasn't Catholicism was
wrong.
It wasn't just something to disregard. It was wrong, and it was bad, and they were going to hell, and poor people, right?
Yeah.
Didn't have to kill them, right? Thankfully, my parents weren't like that, but anything else was just wrong. And I grew up thinking I have to pray for all my friends because none of my friends were Catholic, right? And I think poor guys are going to go to hell where I'm not. Eventually, I started thinking about this, and as far as my parents are concerned, I totally strayed from the path because I stopped being a Catholic. I stopped
Yeah, of
wanting to go
course.
to church. I stopped believing in the extreme ideals that my parents have. And as far as my parents are concerned, it was a huge letdown because I had strayed from that path. I know now, as a parent myself, that they were probably thinking, don't worry about it, he'll come back to the proper path. I never did.
Yeah,
And so, as far as my parents are concerned, especially my father, that was a huge failure on my part because they'd done everything they could to keep
yeah.
me in the path. And until the day they died, as far as they're concerned, I was, I, I took the wrong path. I don't think so. I think I took the right path, right? It might happen to you.
Yeah, of course.
And so this friend you're talking about, and a lot of other people that you might meet, they will deviate from what you believe is the proper path, but maybe it's the right path for them, and they might go do things that you would never do in a million years. But when you look at them, they're happy,
Yeah.
right? And as long as they're not damaging themselves physically, and you can see from far away that they're happy, then that's
Well, I
perfectly
mean,
fine as too.
the reason why I bring up this case because I don't know if he was happy.
Yeah, well, that's it, and that's what it really was. What my question to you was: if a person like that is your friend or used to be your friend, you see them take another path, and it's not a path of happiness. What do you do? Do you say something? Do you not say something? Is it we live in a world of free will. Do you
Um,
let them follow that path until they skydive and fall flat on their faces, or do you warn them first? That's a huge question. That's one of the most important questions when it comes to relationships. Believe me, there's no answer. I don't think an answer. Again, disclaimer: we're not psychologists. We're not
yeah,
here
of course.
to fix people's problems. But in my experience, that's a question that has no answer because sometimes if you warn people, if you try to bring them back to your way, you could really screw things up. But if you don't, you could be accused of not being a friend. Where were you when I needed you? What? Why didn't you tell me that I was in the wrong path? Right? That happened to me once.
The way that I think is obviously it depends on how close I am to the person. If I was very close to them at one point and I saw them every day and we were best friends, I would be like, listen, dude, maybe like if you need anything, I can try to help you, but I think you should change your way that you're living your life right now. And if they get angry at me, then it is what it is. I tried my best.
Has it happened to you? Yeah.
No, not yet. Like if Raul and Krish, if that happened to them, then I think I definitely would do say something and I'd be I feel like it's damaging you. Obviously, if I see that they're not happy and whatever, if I see they're happy and it's not doing physical damage to them, then I'll be like, well, I mean, you can do you. You know what I mean? It's not what I would do, but if it's making you happy, then
Yeah. Well,
you know what
maybe
I mean?
sometimes that happens. They fulfill their purpose in your life and then move on. And
Yeah.
that's perfectly fine too. Do you feel that's what's happened with your other friends? Do you think they fulfilled their their purpose in your life, and now there's no need to reclaim them back? Or do you feel there's conversations that you should have had with them that you never had that could have maybe fixed all that?
I feel like there is, but it wouldn't have made our relationship better.
Okay.
You know
No,
what I
that's
mean?
good. That's good. Yeah, yeah.
Like I feel like now well, especially yeah, okay. So I feel like back then I was a non-conflictive person. If I could not argue with someone, I would just do it, and take the hit of not saying what I wanted to say.
Right.
And I feel like now I'm not like that. I feel like now I realize that, like I say, I'm a more logical person, and if we get into an argument, then
So
it is what it is. But I want to say that they did fulfill a part of my life because I mean, I make it sound like they were the devils and I had no fun with them at all. But I had loads of fun times. I played hours and hours of video games, hours of football. I went to their houses and, like I said, they were there for, at least a few of them were there for my best friends for what, probably like 13, 14 years of my life, you know.
You were inseparable.
So
Yeah,
it
yeah.
was, you know, and during those 14 years, it was at a amazing time. There were some ups and downs, obviously, like there is with everything, but you know, it was great. But you know, good things come to an end. Not everything is for a lifetime. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it
It's
is what
quite
it
big of
is.
you to admit all that. And what was it that you would have told them, even though you knew that it wouldn't have changed your relationship coming forward? What was it? You know, if they were right in front of you now, what would you have said? Or is it too far in the past to think about?
No, I mean, I think it's too far in the past. I don't think it's necessary to say those things because obviously, I mean, it's when I say this, I mean, it's just in this argument, I would have stood up for myself more compared to this argument. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not necessary. It's not like big monumental things.
Right.
It's just that, just you know, and I'm grateful for having them as friends when we were friends, and I'm not disappointed that they were my friends because we all learned a lot and it was great. We had fun, but you know, it's sad that it ended the way it ended. It is what it is. You know what I mean? Can't really do anything
Yeah.
about it. In a perfect world, we would have all aligned morally and we would still be all great friends now. I'm pretty sure that they're mostly great friends now. And it is what it is, you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
it's perfect. Yeah, that kind of stuff happened. It's funny because I bumped into a couple of their parents a while back,
Yeah.
a few months ago, and I could tell in their tone of voice that they regret everything that happened. Although they were very happy it happened at the time, I think they regret it now because probably they've come to realize that you and the people that used to be there were a very close knit
Yeah, we were.
group of friends, and they kind of regret having taken part and taken sides in their children's feuds and edging their children into the into the separation of the two groups.
Well, you know what I
But
mean? It
it's
is.
like you say, exactly, it is what it is.
It's
Things
life. I
happen.
mean, I don't have any hard feelings towards them. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like it's in the past. It happened 2, 3 years ago now. When I see them, I say hi to them. I ask them how they're doing, and they say they're good. I'm like, oh, I'm glad for you. They ask the same thing. They ask to say how I'm doing. You know, and it's not like we see each other and we start having fist fights. You know what I mean? I mean,
Yeah, these are just life lessons. That's
yeah,
what they are.
it's
That's relationships for you.
it's
That's
part
what
of
we're
life.
talking
You know.
about.
When I'm
Yeah.
moving on to my second point, I wanted to talk
Well,
about.
that was only the first point.
Yeah, that's fine.
Excellent.
We're like 50 minutes in, and it's only the first one.
So this is gonna be like a diary of a CEO. It's gonna be 2.5 hour conversation. I like
Yeah,
it.
we'll see. We'll see what happens. I mean,
Yeah.
maybe this question we'll answer in 5 minutes, and we can wrap it up. But you
All
never
right. So
know.
you got a question? Tell me.
So obviously I don't know how much you want me to say it, but anyways, I'll just say it. When you were younger, you loved very hard, you know, and
Oh, did I? Yes.
every single woman you met was, this is the one, I'm
The
gonna
one.
marry her.
Always.
My question is how did you know that mum was actually the one that you wanted to have children with? Because obviously you guys had, like when I think about it, you guys had me 2 years after you met. No?
Not even. Well, we had you 2 years, but yeah,
Yeah.
we were ready to have you very shortly after we met you.
Like for me, when I think about that, I'm like, that's insane. Obviously, number one, because I'm 19, so just having a child
Yeah.
right now for me is insane. But thinking about like just meeting someone and a year later being like, let's go for it, is
Yeah.
quite crazy. And I want to know how you knew, if you can answer, of course, because maybe
Yeah.
this is an impossible question to answer, but how you knew that mum was the one that you wanted to have a child with.
All right. To answer that, I have to take you back in time to my upbringing. As I said, I was born into a very religious, very Catholic
Yeah.
family. I was a huge introvert. I still am, and I wasn't a terribly good-looking person. I still aren't. And both those two things made me feel incredibly shy and incredibly self-conscious. And my self-esteem was always pretty much down the drain, and that carried on pretty much until the moment I turned 16, 17, more or less. However, I've always had impeccable taste in women. right?
Okay.
I was an ugly duckling, but I knew exactly what I
What you-
liked, right? I was into Farrah Fawcett, Claudia Schiffer,
Yeah.
all these beautiful girls, and
Who I don't
and
know who they are, but you know.
right, and I had good taste,
Yeah.
right? Which means that so suddenly you have a young child or a young man or a young pre-teenager, depending, do you choose your point
Yeah.
in time, that feels he's he feels pretty worthless, and yet admires this beautiful woman or these beautiful girls, right? So the very moment any of those beautiful girls acknowledged me, I was in love,
Yeah.
no matter what. However, I was also a really nice guy. I was polite. I wasn't talkative, but I was very polite. I was a huggable little teddy bear, right? So when those beautiful girls got sick of hanging out with the jocks of the school, of the cool guys, they turned to me, and they said, you know what, I'm going to talk to Albert. He's a really nice guy. And eventually it happened enough times for me to think like, well, there's something to this being a nice guy. But of course I wasn't dumb, so I knew enough that this love wasn't really love at all. How did I know that? Because I had my parents as a reference. My parents loved each other in a very different way to the way I love your mom, but they loved each other passionately and with 100% loyalty till the very end,
Yeah.
right? And that was my moral benchmark. That was my moral compass. And so even though I was always in love with somebody, I knew that that love wasn't really what I thought of as love. It was just lust, friendship, whatever it was.
Yeah.
But it kept me going. And the reason I was always in love is because it kept me going. My self-esteem was so in the pits that kind of thing just kept me going day after day after day, thinking like, okay, I suck, I'm ugly, but I'm friends with a beautiful woman, so it's not, life isn't all that bad.
It's not too bad.
It's not too bad.
Could be worse.
Yeah, exactly. So that's my thing. So you move forward till I was, in my 30s, my early 30s, and I met your mom again. As you know, she went to school as well. She went to Sunnyview School, just like I did. So I've known her for a long time, just that we never really coincided. I was 4 years older than her.
Yeah.
And when you're in school, 4 years is a huge amount of
Yeah.
time. You don't even cross paths. I saw her just like in the films. I was in a club with Nikki. We were
Yeah.
having a few drinks. She was across on the other side of the bar, so it's just like a rock ballad, right? And I saw her dancing away, and the way she was dancing, I loved the way she was dancing. And it took me like 5 minutes, but I thought, I know that girl from somewhere. And then it clicked who she was. And I think it was probably that night, her rejection of me that night, because she totally rejected me. The moment we started, I went up to her.
I didn't know that.
Thanks to Nicky, it was Nicky. Nicky reintroduced us. In his Nicky fashion, he just went up to him and said, "Hey, do you not remember us from Sunnyview?" and Karen, your mom, said, "No, I hate Sunnyview School and anything related to Sunnyview."
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And Nick said, "Well, this is Albert. He went to school with you." And then he just buggered off, left me talking to your mom, who for the first 5 minutes made it for a really awkward conversation because she was telling me, I no longer speak English because I hate everything related to Sunnyview School. I hate you because you're related to Sunnyview School. You have this American accent, which I hate. I'm a stubborn guy, so I heard those words and I just kept on going. And by the end of the night, we were having drinks together and we were having shots together. And I remember going home that night thinking, I haven't had so much fun in my whole life.
Yeah.
And then the next week, the week after that, we got together again. And that's the night I knew for sure.
Well, do you want to have a child with her then?
No,
Oh, okay.
at all. Children were the last thing on my mind.
Well, that's why I'm interested about.
So, but that moment, I knew that she was the girl I wanted to be with.
Yeah.
There was just absolutely everything about her that I absolutely loved. I suddenly felt the best I've ever been.
Okay. Yeah.
That's, if you have a girlfriend, that's the way you want to be.
Yeah.
If you want to have that person make you feel the best you've ever been. And it hasn't stopped. When I'm with your mom, I'm the best I can be.
Okay, so perfect. So all that's amazing, and I'm glad to hear that were madly in love with mom. But at what point in the relationship did you say, okay, I want to have a child with her? You know what I mean?
Yep.
Because, or if there was a point, because maybe there wasn't, and I was an accident. I don't know. But from
Okay.
what you've told me in my life, I wasn't an accident, but maybe I was, and you just lied to me.
No, you weren't an accident, but let me tell you, you were very close to not being at all.
Oh yeah.
No, yeah, because none of my friends had children at the time.
Mm-hmm.
I'd spent a lot of time, a lot of the years of my life, of my adult life, in relationships, long term-ish relationships, anywhere between 2 and 4 years, or maybe
That's
even
quite long
5 years.
term.
Yeah, considering I was 33 at the time, that's quite a few years of my life. None of those relationships ever went anywhere ultimately. So for me, they were a waste, although of course they weren't. They served their purpose in my life at the
Yeah.
time, and they served it very, very well. So yes, I was a little bit reticent to have children, and I was, even though I was very sure that your mom, that Karen, was the woman of my life, I wasn't 100% sure that I was a woman, the man in her life.
Yeah.
And I'd had enough relationships to know that things could change very, very quickly in a very, very short period of time. At
Yeah.
the same time, for the first time in my life, I was having an incredible time with a person I really enjoyed being with. Right? Oh, big truck. And of course, when you're getting close to your mid 30s, and you, as far as you're concerned, your life is going to start going downhill from then. Little did I know uh, that when you're 35, you're still very young. Um, the last thing I wanted, and I think your mom too, was to be hindered by children, by the responsibilities and the huge, I won't say burden, but yeah, huge responsibility of
It
children.
is a burden at the end of the day. I mean,
Well, not
it's
really. Well, that's it. The last I knew well enough, especially because of that moral compass that my
oh look,
parents.
there's a special guest of the mum.
Oh, hello.
Um,
Well, right behind me is
yeah,
my other half, the second part of your DNA.
yeah,
So anyway, did I say I don't ever want to have children? Absolutely not. I did want to have children. I never thought that bringing children into this world was bad, etc., etc. It was just something. I was not prepared to have children. I wasn't mature enough, and I hadn't lived enough of my own life to be able to dedicate myself fully to having a child.
yeah,
That's what I thought then. Right. So that's how close you came to not being here at all. However, all that changed in an instant. Why and how? I have no idea, but I do remember the very moments. And I have a very, very bad memory, but this is the one moment in my life where I remember distinctly. Your mom and I had gone out partying as we do every weekend. It was just business as usual, having fun, being with our friends, listening to great music. We got back home late on a weekend as usual. We were living together by then,
yeah.
and we were about to go to bed, and we looked into each other's eyes, and something changed just like that. Literally, just like that. I looked into her eyes. She looked at me in a certain way, and I said, "Let's have a child." It was just like that.
Oh,
It was crazy, 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 crazy. And she said, thankfully, she said, "Okay, let's have a child." And we had a child. There you are. But you know what's even weirder is that when you try to have a child, when you say, "Okay, let's have a child," that's when you start trying to have a child,
yeah.
right? I mean, sometimes it takes you months, sometimes it takes you years. You were born 9 months
Later.
later. That night we decided, and that night we conceived. It's pretty uncanny.
Yeah, that's quite crazy. And I was born on the day that the doctor said, like
And you were
the
born.
due dates.
You were born. He gave us 2 due dates, and you were born on the second one. So that was pretty. It was pretty special because I mean I don't believe in come this point I don't believe in everything that my parents used to say. I don't believe in any kind of ethereal god that comes down and moves you around like a puppet or anything like that. But there are moments in life when that really stick to you, and that was one of them. Because I didn't expect it. I don't know about your mom, but I didn't expect it at all.
Nikki and Maggie had tried when they decided to have children. It took them over a year before Alex was even conceived. You have the example of Julian and Bobby, who took them 10 years.
Yeah.
And other friends we have that were actually trying, it all took people quite a while, so we didn't expect.
Fair enough.
There you
That's
go.
good.
Well, anyway, that's the story of your conception. Oh boy. Oh boy.
That's just
Cats and dogs. Right. So, anything else you need to know about yourself and your? Well, how do you feel? How does that make you feel?
I mean, uh, yeah, I don't know. I'm glad of the previous part of the that you're talking about how much you love mom, and obviously that makes me happy. I'm glad to hear. But yeah, it just surprises me the quick turn of events that of how you can go from one point of view to the
Next.
other in nothing. You know what I mean?
Funny thing
'Cause-
is that since the moment we took that decision, it was all we wanted.
yeah,
Yeah. It wasn't like the next day think like, oh man, was I too drunk, or did I speak too fast, or
yeah.
oh man,
You never thought that it was a mistake. You always thought that it was
From
you
that
did
moment
good,
on,
and
that
it
was-
was
that was all we wanted, and we couldn't wait to find out if we were pregnant or not.
yeah. Oh, that's really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, because I just want to ask because obviously I'm just to know what to expect if I ever get to that point or when I get to that point, you know, because obviously right now that thought hasn't even like crossed my mind, you know. Obviously right now I'm like I don't even want a child, so I don't know what to expect. I don't know how that thought process goes, so I was quite interested to see, and I'm
Well, my advice to you and to anybody that's listening that cares or not, would be to always be true to what you feel and what you think that you can do.
yeah
I had a great friend, a good friend once, who put it in nutshell with me. I didn't ask for the advice, but he told me, never have children until you've done everything you want to have and everything that you want to do without children.
yeah
And it's very practical advice, not necessarily, but it's good advice in the sense that you don't want to feel that your child is a burden in any way.
yeah
So my advice to people is pretty much do that. Be true to yourself, and make sure that if you're going to have a child, you've have it with the person that wants to have a child with you, so that you can travel that journey together. Because we live in a modern world, and I think anything goes, and I respect absolutely everything. But I do think that the best way to go is to have a child with two parents, whether same sex or not, it doesn't matter. But a child with two parents is a better child than a child with one parent or a child with no parent at all.
yeah
Call me old school, but I still really do think that, because all the people that I know that have had two parents are much better off than all the people I know that have had one parent or no parents at all. So just basically, it's what I've seen. It's my experience.
yeah
So my advice to you is, moving forward, you might have one girlfriend, two girlfriends. You might have a girlfriend for 10 years, for 20 years, forever. Just listen to yourself and say, if I had a child now, would I be happy, or would I have to change so drastically that it would burden me? If the answer is the second, then don't have a child.
No, I wanna. I've thought about it. You know, obviously, do I want to have children? And I definitely do want to have children. I would like to experience that. You know, I feel like it's quite a. Obviously, I've never experienced it, but I can imagine it being quite a magical thing,
That's the best.
and quite crazy. You know, to see someone grow up. You know, obviously see someone that you've created. You know, but when you were younger, was there like, did you expect to have a child earlier, later, than when you actually had one, or did it never really come?
I think a bit
think
like
about
you.
it.
I think I felt pretty much like you. I knew that in my mind I did want to have a child. I have four brothers and sisters, so it's a big family I come from. So I knew that it's a joy to have children around. You know,
Yeah.
my parents were always, you know, they were always fulfilled because of the children they had around them. And all my Spanish side of the family, you know, I have like hundreds of cousins.
Yeah.
It's crazy. You know, they're like rabbits. You know, they never even stop right now. Christ. Anyway, I didn't want to go through those extremes, but I knew that if I was going to have a family needed a child at some point. Apart from that, I didn't really think much more.
Okay.
Throughout the years of my relationships, I had that kind of worry as well. What happens if like at any given point of time, I say I'm 21 and I'm working in the UK, you know, and I'm working in, like I was at that time, working in clubs, going to bed late, you know, no proper life for a guy that has a child. Sporadically, you know, if I had a girlfriend or not, I would say, what happens if I have a child now? Right? Would I go through the abortion route, or because I'm definitely not prepared to have a child? You know, in this kind of lifestyle, I don't have money, I don't have a proper job, I don't have any kind of stability. So that kind of thing used to cross my mind as a very slight worry that then I would sleep it out, and then I wasn't prepared really,
Yeah.
and I knew it, and I was old enough to and smart enough to know that I wasn't prepared to bring up a child. You would have been much different if I'd had you when I was 21.
Well, yeah, obviously. I mean, different stages of life, and obviously different people as well. I mean, it's...
Well, yeah, and I think the moral compass that I've been able to, that we keep on talking about, I think the reason why I think so far Mommy and I had done a good job in instilling it in you is because we had you at the right time.
Yeah.
If I would have had you at 21 years old, my moral compass was all over the place. All over the place. Let me tell you, you would have grown up a very different child, a very confused child.
Yeah. Anyways,
right. So that's all to do with you. That's how you came to life. That's how you were decided upon. And
how
nothing,
my judgments came.
And absolutely, as far as relationships are concerned, relationship father-child is one that scared the crap out of me when you were a baby. Because again, you know, you're never really prepared.
Yeah.
The moment you were born, you fly by the seat of your pants. You do your best, and because you are so young that you can't reply and you can't answer back, you never really know if you're doing the right thing.
Yeah.
Right. And it's only now that you're 19 and you're your own person and you've grown your wings that those answers get answered for our parents.
Well, I have tiny wings right now.
You have tiny wings. No, but they're wings. They're wings.
Yeah, obviously.
You know, before that, you don't know because you're here.
Yeah, of course.
And you do what you say, you do as you're told, and you might be a great child because you're an obedient child, but that doesn't mean that we've done the right thing.
It doesn't make me a good person.
You might be so obedient, you might be really obedient and really smiley to my face, but when you go to bed and you're on your own, you just want to get the hell out and do your own thing. And that's not necessarily bad either, but that's not what I wanted. I want you to go do your own thing, always feeling like this is your home until it isn't, right? You know. And so far, so good. I think. I don't know.
Yeah, so far it's great. I mean, I don't have any. Whenever I come back to Spain, I don't feel like I don't think I'm like I have to go back.
No, I don't see what I see is good, and I don't see that you miss us particularly, which is also good.
I do miss you guys. It's not that I don't miss you. It's just I don't feel the need to have to talk to you guys every day to feel like I know you guys are there or to feel connected to you guys, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Like
we're looking to have an independent person that was ready to go, and when you go, you go. Mm-hmm. It hurts a little because I would love, you know, there's not a single moment that passes by that I don't think about you as a, you know, whether you're okay, whether you're, you know, whether you're studying, not studying, whether you're happy. But I wouldn't have it any other way. This is exactly what we wanted.
Yeah, I'm glad. Obviously, that doesn't mean that I don't think about you guys. Obviously, I think about you guys all the time, and it's because I love you guys to bits. And no, but you know what I mean. Like, I don't want it to sound like I just forgot about you, you know, and I put you guys in the backstop. That's not true at all. It's just I feel like, I don't know.
Well, I'd like to know what people watching this are thinking. You know, are you thinking like you guys are so full of crap? You're just painting a perfect picture when that doesn't exist because my experience is this and this. I'd be really curious because I really don't know.
Which we aren't. I mean, what we're talking about now is how it is.
It's the way it is. Otherwise, we wouldn't be sitting here.
Yeah, we wouldn't be doing
You'd
this.
be like doing something else with your friends.
Yeah.
Cool. So now relationships. Now my turn. I
Okay.
want to ask you about relationships.
Go ahead.
As far as you're concerned, you've had one serious relationship so
Mhm.
far,
Yeah.
and a couple of near misses.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that? You've had a, I'm not gonna say it's a failed relationship. It just basically ran its course, right? Or what?
Which one? The one with that I actually had it like the with
Yeah,
Maya
with your
and
girlfriend. Yeah,
yeah, it wasn't a failed relationship. I mean, we had ups and downs. Obviously, we had a brief interlude, I guess.
to clarify, it is now over, right?
Yeah, it is now over. It is now over. Now
And it
we're
lasted.
it lasted around 2 years,
Right.
give or take. Um, and yeah, I mean, it just ran its course. You know, we she moved to America. I moved to Ireland. We both agreed that we didn't want to do long distance because I was very adamant that I didn't want to do it, and she agreed with me that it was too much, and it wasn't easy to end at all. But you know, in the long term, especially, well, we were both very much in agreement that if we wanted to even still be friends and still have the a really good connection, I guess the best thing would just to be stay friends. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because in the long term, obviously it's not in every single case, but especially in our case where we had it would be like a 6 or 7 hour time difference, you know, which that's really hard. And just also the way that both of us are, where we don't really text that much, you know. Well, I text more than she does, so you can imagine how much she does.
Right. I thought she texted more. I thought because she's a
No,
very
no, no, no.
talkative girl. I thought she
Yeah,
was.
that's what's surprising. She's very talkative, but she doesn't really text that
Right.
much. So it just would have been hard, and yeah, it just ran its course. We parted ways. We're still very good friends. We still talk every once in a while. We saw each other this summer. We see each other during Christmas as well. And yeah,
Any when you get together
no,
or not? So
no.
it's all gone then. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
it's all
definitely
gone.
over.
Yeah.
Not even a little for good time's sake type situation.
No, I don't think that would be a good idea. I mean, I don't like.
The world is full of bad ideas. let me
But
tell
that's
you.
why.
Starting with those.
Exactly. That's why it's the world is full of them. So like, I don't need.
All right. That's crazy. I find that so, and I told you this at the time. I find that so mature, coming from two young, um, hormone-filled teenagers that are just discovering a proper relationship for the first time. That is in my point of view, that's the attitude of a person that's much older.
Yeah.
Saying, I've done this before. I know what happens. I know how it ends up. So I think we're not going to go there. I think we're going to stop here. However, you guys have no reference at all that should be the case. You're just assuming that by having a long distance relationship, everything's going to go pear-shaped. And you're probably right. In my experience, long distance relationships do not work with a big capital D.
I mean, because the whole thing, like I said before, that I'm a very practical guy in that sense. You know, when it
got that
comes to
right,
my
yeah.
emotions, I'm very practical and I'm very logical as well. So the only real reference I had to the long distance was because during summers she would go to the States.
Yeah.
So during those 2.5, 3 months around there, she would be gone, and that's basically like a test, you know, of what
Yeah.
what it's gonna be like.
Right. So you did have a point of reference.
So I did have a point of
Right,
reference, and those every single time she left, it was terrible. I was like, this is so shit. I can't talk to her. You know, when I wake up, she's going to sleep. When I'm going to sleep, she's waking up.
Yeah.
We have well, obviously I'm exaggerating a bit, but you know, when I'm ending my day and I'm like, okay, I'm free, she's just starting her day, and she's like, I'm not free, and it's when she's ending, I'm going to sleep. So you know,
Yeah.
we never had time to properly call, to sit down, to be like, okay, what's going on? How's life? You know, so it was a lot of.
Yeah.
So that was quite shit, you know.
Yeah.
And apart from that, it's also I'm also like I need I like being with the person, you know. I like the contact of being with the person, hugging them, kissing them, you know. And without that, I just don't. It's not that I don't enjoy it as much, but I feel like I'm missing something, you know.
Yeah.
And I feel like I'm missing being with the person. And I know that it was just gonna be like that.
You
And also,
ever,
I'm quite a jealous guy as well. I would say I'm not overly jealous, but you know, it's
yeah, so that's where I think the digital era comes in.
yeah,
You What you don't know can't kill you. Basically, that's the way we used to work back in my day.
exactly,
And of course, if you're only writing letters and those letters comes a month apart, what you don't read in those letters never happened. So, but of course now you got social media, you got photographs, you got Instagram, so
exactly,
it's very easy to see what's going on, but also to misinterpret what's going on, whether for the better or for the worse.
exactly.
Yeah, yeah. So I can see that. I can see
And
that.
I I can see how people perceive it as a very pessimistic view, because I have like one of my other best friends, Thomas. Him and his girlfriend are doing long distance, and you know it's working for them. And I'm super happy with them, and it's great. But you know, in my mind, I'm just like, I don't know how you guys do it. I'm gonna be completely honest with you. You know,
Yeah, fair enough.
like
It's not for everybody.
and I love Mari to bits, and you know I you know we're still great friends, and we still talk, and you know I'm super happy that she's enjoying it. But I feel like our relationship could have turned sour. You know what I mean? Over in the long term.
Yeah.
And I just, if realistically, if I have to choose between ending it and our still having a good relationship as friends, or not ending it and continuing being in a relationship, me getting sour or things getting sour, me being jealous, her getting jealous of me, whatever could
Yeah.
happen. You know what I mean? I just don't think it's. I just don't see it. The cons outweigh the pros. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I said, in the short term, it hurt me and it destroyed me when she left. But it is what it is, you know.
Well, you
Like
say destroyed you, but I never saw you destroyed. I saw you pretty much going on, or you just interiorized the whole thing and didn't say anything to anyone.
uh, I mean, okay, yeah, it destroyed me. It didn't destroy me, but you know, it hurt. You know what I mean? I want to say that it's not like she left and I was like, come on, let's continue on the day to
Right.
day. You know,
Yeah.
like I was quite sad. I was like, damn, you know, it's an end of an era. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And right now I can confidently say I'm glad we did it. You know what I mean?
I was gonna ask you, what's now that you since it's done, there's no turning back. Clearly, because you've
Yeah.
seen each other since, and there's no turning back. No regrets,
None. I have to say.
and on her part,
I think she has no regrets. I mean, she hasn't told me otherwise, so
that's good.
I don't see her, and I didn't see her with an attitude of saying, like, oh, I wish we didn't break up, you know?
Yeah, that's great. Well, as your father,
Yeah.
let me tell you, since we're having this conversation, father and son, I think for me, it was admirable that you both took that decision. You knew
Yeah.
out early that it was a joint decision and that you stuck to it. I can see now that it was the right decision. I see you very happy. I saw Mar very, very briefly a few weeks ago, and she looked perfectly happy as well. Do I think your relationship could have ended up being a long term relationship? You never know.
Yeah.
As a parent, no, she was a very nice girl. You're a great guy. You were pretty much compatible. There were a few things that I could see that were slightly, they weren't quite core value material, if you see what I mean.
Yeah.
I won't go into them, but I could see a couple of things there. However, nothing that you can't grow into
Yeah,
together,
of
right?
course.
Because you're young enough. If you'd been in your 40s, I would have said absolutely not. It's not
Yeah.
gonna work. But because you're young enough, you can mold those core values to shape them into something that works for both of you, right?
Yeah,
You
of
know,
course.
That's the beauty of having a relationship, is that you can mold those core values into one when they come from separate people. Man, that sounds good, right?
Should write that down.
Yeah. So there's nothing there that I saw that I think like, oh no, absolutely not. I think otherwise I probably would have told you. Yeah, I'm not one for meddling into other people's affairs, but seeing as we do have
Yeah.
a relationship, I probably would have said, man, you know, but you did it yourself, and you both decided. I thought it was admirable, and I still do. I don't think I could have, being the love guy that I was. I don't think I could have been able to take
Yeah.
that decision myself.
I don't know. It was yeah. I have to say that moment was. I mean, I was lucky because she was in agreement with me, but in that moment, I was like, no matter what, I'm going to stick to my guns and I'm going to say no. You know,
Good for you. Good for you.
because yeah, yeah, I'm very glad I did it because I could just see that it was in the long term it was gonna hurt me more than it was gonna
Benefit you.
benefit me, and also because the thing is that there was no, we couldn't see in a future where we would move to the same place, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So far, our futures were, I'm moving to Ireland, she's going to the States, and we're staying there,
Yeah.
and we're going to do our degrees there, and she was probably going to get a job there, and I was probably going to get a job somewhere here in Europe in the engineering
Yeah. So
field.
you couldn't see your lives converging unless it was uprooting one of you. Yeah.
Exactly. There was, and then I could then that's definitely where things are like, bueno,
That's
let's
great.
end it here. You
That's
know what I mean?
admirable. I really don't know, because you're the only son I have. I'm not sure if that's a general trait in the people your age, or if it's particular to you. But I find it admirable that somebody so young could take such a momentous decision so early in your life and stick to it, knowing that it's the right decision. That's very
Yeah, I
admirable.
think I don't know. I don't think it's a usual thing. I don't know. I don't want to toot my own horn here, but I feel like it's quite a mature
Do it,
thing
man.
to
Be
do.
proud.
You know?
And you guys knew for quite a while. It was like all your last year of schooling that you
Yeah.
knew that the end of the school year was pretty much going to be the end.
Because obviously we knew that she was very adamant on going to the States because obviously she's American, so she wanted to do that, which is obviously very fair enough. You know what I mean? Like, and I was very adamant on staying here, obviously in different parts of Europe at the time, but we knew that the time difference was gonna be 6 hours, more or less. You know what I mean? Because I think she was pretty adamant on staying on the East Coast. So it's just
Not compatible. Good enough. Right? Anything else on relationships? What else? What other points do you
No,
have?
I think this is a good point to wrap up. I think it's oh damn, I just hit the table. But yeah, I think it's a good moment to wrap up. I don't unless there's any more. I don't have any more questions for you. Unless you have any more questions for me.
Not for now. Not for now. Probably as soon as we finish this podcast, I'll have 2 or 3 more.
Yeah, probably. Well, then
But
we
it's
can
been
just-
long enough. I think I know you a little bit better now, which is great.
Yeah,
And I hope that people that listen to this will resonate with them. And if it doesn't, we would love to hear why it doesn't and how it doesn't. This is a conversation that we'd love to have open. And do we know what we're going to be talking about in the next podcast? Have we
I do
any
not.
idea?
I do not have any ideas yet.
All right.
But just because I haven't sat down and to think about it. But thank you very much for watching and being with us for however long you stayed for. We hope you enjoyed it. If you have anything to say and you disagree with anything or you agree with anything, leave it down in the comments. Like and subscribe, like always. And yeah, we hope you enjoyed. See you guys next time. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.